So I want you to come on a little journey with me right now. I want you to imagine that you are a soldier in wartime, patrolling the forest with your squad. And then suddenly, up ahead, you hear rustling in the bush. You scan around you, and then it hits you with horror. You see them, a long line of fighters, guerrilla fighters, dressed in camouflage and carrying machine guns. Instinctively, you raise your rifle, you flip off the safety catch, and you point it at the leader who is carrying an AK-47. This is actually a true story that was told to me by a man who was drafted against his will into the Rhodesian army before the fall of apartheid. Before he was drafted, he was an attorney who defended guerrilla fighters in court. And now, to his utter astonishment and dismay, he was preparing to kill them. He focused in on his target, finger on trigger, and then he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Don't shoot," whispered one of his squad members. "It's just a boy." Our friend lowered his rifle and took another look. It was a boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, carrying not a rifle, but a long stick. And trailing behind him was a long line of cows. I'm a psychologist and a neuroscientist, and in my lab, we study why people have these surprising visual experiences. And here is the secret. What you see is influenced by how you feel. Your mood influences what you see, your vision, what you hear, your hearing, and every sense that you have, smell and taste and touch. Not just in the heat of war, but every day of your life. And this discovery of the power of mood just demolishes common sense. And it actually holds serious implications for how we live our lives. Now, when I say mood, I am not talking about emotion, like anger and sadness and fear. Mood is more basic. It's just a simple accounting of how you're doing. So maybe you're hungry right now. Maybe you had a terrific dinner before you came to the show, so you're feeling pretty comfortable. Maybe you are feeling very awake because you had a great night's sleep. You slept like a baby. And maybe you were kept up all night by a baby, so you're feeling pretty tired. Maybe you're sitting next to someone who you care about and you feel really comfortable with. Or maybe you're sitting next to a stranger who's hogging the armrest. All of these things combine together to create your mood. So check in with yourself for a second using this graph. Are you feeling pleasant and kind of good? Are you feeling unpleasant and not so good? Calm? Alert? Jittery? Somewhere in the middle? This is your mood, or what scientists like me call affect. Because scientists always give something a really complicated name. Affect is with you every moment of your life, from the moment that you are born until the moment that you die, whether or not you're emotional and whether or not you're even aware of it. Let me show you an example. All of us right now are looking at the same image But we don't all see this person in exactly the same way. Some of you see her as slightly smiling, and your first impression of her would be as that she's friendly and trustworthy. Other people in this audience see her as slightly frowning and maybe find her less appealing. And still other people find her completely neutral. The difference is your mood, your affect. We actually have demonstrated this effect many, many times in our laboratory. And in fact, if you were to come to my lab, we could make her seem more appealing to you or less appealing just by fiddling with your mood, your affect. And that would influence whether or not you wanted to be her friend, or maybe whether you wanted to even hire her for a job. This power of affect happens in every day of our lives. So the last time that you devoured a delicious piece of chocolate cake, that deliciousness was not in the cake. It's not even in your taste buds. It's actually in your brain. It's your affect. When you're driving on the highway and some idiot cuts you off, your certainty that he is an idiot is your affect. In fact, everything that you will hear tonight will be filtered through your affect. So right now, I'm sure that many of you are thinking, wow, this is an amazing talk. Yeah, she's awesome. And that is your affect. And for the one or two people in the room who are skeptical and don't see the wisdom of my words, yet, that's affect too. So where does affect come from? What is it, really? Well, affect is made by your brain as it controls the systems of your body to keep them all in balance. One of your brain's most important jobs is running a budget for your internal resources like oxygen and glucose, water, salt, hormones, to help keep you alive and well, so that you can do the things that you really like to do, like pass your genes on to the next generation, if you know what I mean. And this body budgeting is completely invisible to you. It's happening under the hood in a way that you are largely unaware of most of the time, which is a really fortunate thing, because if you were aware of it, this is what you would experience. You would hear your heart beating, and your lungs expanding and contracting as you breathe. You'd be listening to a never-ending symphony of bodily sounds and sensations that is so distracting that you would never pay attention to anything outside your own skin. That is what's actually going on inside of each and every one of you right now. So instead of making you aware of this distracting symphony, evolution gave you a workaround that merely hints at whether your body budget is in balance or is in the red. And that workaround is affect. Somehow, the sensations of body budgeting, which are physical, become transformed into affective feelings, which are mental. Scientists don't yet understand how this transformation happens, but we know that it does because there are hundreds of studies from laboratories all around the world which show us that it does. And this transformation from physical to mental is one of the great mysteries of consciousness. So our brains are continuously regulating our body budgets and continuously generating affect. And the tricky bit here is that affect is really imprecise. It's really vague. So here's an analogy. If vision is like watching high-definition TV, then affect is like watching a 50-year-old TV set in black and white with a really bad connection through a layer of bubble wrap. It would have been totally awesome if evolution had given us a smartwatch to regulate our body budget. So that would go something like this. Beep, you're running low on glucose. Have an apple at the intermission. Or even better, have a piece of chocolate. But if this were evolution, it would be telling you to have an apple. Or beep, you didn't sleep too much last night, so you're running low on a brain chemical called dopamine. So drink 8 ounces of coffee, preferably dark roast with a little bit of cream, to borrow energy from tomorrow to help you get through the rest of today. But that's not what we have. We have feeling kind of crappy. And then your brain is constantly guessing to figure out what caused that crappy feeling so that it knows what to do next to keep you alive and well. Sometimes your brain guesses really well. It's like right on the mark. And other times, not so much. So you can be walking down the street and then you come to a hill, and your affect can actually cause you to see that hill as steeper than it actually is. If you have the misfortune to interview for a job on a rainy, gray day, the listless feeling that we get when it's gloomy outside can cause your interviewer to actually be less impressed with you than they otherwise would, making it harder for you to actually get that job. And we all know that after we've had a few drinks and we're feeling pretty good, miraculously, everyone around us becomes much more attractive than they were before. So the bottom line here is that feeling is believing. You believe what you feel. The wiring of your brain guarantees that this is how it works. And in my lab, we give this a fancy name. We call it affective realism. Affective realism. You believe what you feel. And now we are equipped to understand what happened to our friend in the forest when he saw those guerrilla fighters. So he was in a dangerous situation that disrupted his body budget. And he felt a powerful wave of affect, and he physically saw a gun that wasn't there. Affective realism. And he prepared to shoot an unarmed African civilian. Does that sound familiar to you? It should. Now, I'm being deliberately provocative here to make a point. And I just want to be really clear. I'm not suggesting that every time an unarmed civilian is shot, that it's merely a case of affective realism. These are really tragic situations, and they are caused by a variety of very complex influences. But as a scientist, I have to tell you that your brain, the human brain, is wired to see the world through affect-colored glasses. And a deeper appreciation of this, of affective realism, might help to save someone's life, just like that tap on the shoulder saved the life of that young African shepherd and his cows. If we were going to pursue this a little further, we could discuss how affective realism may be at the heart of some of our society's most challenging problems, like the opioid crisis, fake news, escalating gun violence, and every single financial meltdown of the past century. Because affective realism is part of human nature. It is inevitable for you and for me and for every person on this planet. But that doesn't mean that we are destined to hallucinate, to shoot people by mistake, to become addicted to pain medication, or make bad decision after bad decision, because we can learn to use affect to our advantage. And when we do, affect becomes a source of wisdom. So let me give you one example. You can use affect as a cue to step back from your deeply held beliefs so that you can better connect with people who see the world in a way that's different from the way that you do. When you watch something on television, or you read something in the newspaper or on the internet, or you listen to something on the radio, and it hits you immediately that it is obviously true, right? Or obviously a piece of foolishness, that is a cue that whatever you've encountered has touched a deeply held belief and either confirmed it or violated it, impacting your body budget. And so that's the moment to open your mind, to listen, and to learn. Even if you know you're right, maybe especially if you know you are right. Right? Conservatives know that abortion is immoral, and liberals know that abortion is a woman's right. This knowing is affect. And maybe if we were a little less suspicious of each other and a little more suspicious of our own certainty, which is forged in the fires of affect, maybe our democracy would be a little healthier. And this skill is something, yep, thank you, right? And this skill is something that we can use in our own lives each and every day. So that idiot who cut you off on the highway, maybe he is just an idiot. Or maybe he's an idiot who's rushing to the hospital to be with his kid. You can use the affect that came about, right? When he cut you off, it disrupted your body budget and gave you a strong sense of affect. And you can use that as a cue to take a breath, to take a deep breath. Breathing, it turns out, is one of the ways that we can control affect a little bit, because breathing, it allows one part of our nervous system to kind of dial down the other parts to create enough space for us to transform certainty into curiosity. And that curiosity can let you consider other options. Options that don't necessarily involve swearing at him or chasing him with your car. Options that could save you from getting a speeding ticket or even having a car accident due to road rage. Now, if I were listening to this talk, it's right about now that I would be thinking, seriously, in the heat of the moment, who has time to hit the pause button and be curious about their affect? It just sounds completely impractical in some situations. And that's right, it is. So sometimes the trick is to be curious earlier, to take a moment before the heat of the moment, before you get behind the wheel, before you have a meeting with your difficult boss, before you draw your firearm. Take a breath. That might allow you a moment to think about what to do next. And you might discover other paths forward that don't involve you seeing a gun at the end, where there is no gun. With a little bit of practice, affect can help you make better, wiser choices. You can make choices that will improve your life, choices that will maybe save your job or your relationship, choices that will touch and maybe even save the lives of those around you. Thank you.